Clive Hyman. Mr. Hyman, you're a property investment consultant. Mr. Hyman.
Yeah. Concerns control of our own borders. What do you say to the future victims of criminals whom we cannot deport because of our involvement with Europe, with the EU and the Human Rights Act?
All right, what would you say to future victims of crime who we might not be able to deport because of the Human Rights Act? It falls to you for the opening minute, Nigel Farage.
Well, if I was a member of the Liberal Democrat, Labour or Conservative parties that had allowed this legislation to come onto the British statute book, then what I ought to be doing is I ought to be saying I am very sorry. Because the one thing, there are lots of things, by the way, we can learn from Europe, and we are learning some of them. The food's getting better here, and that's great. But one thing, well, it's true. I mean, one thing that we cannot learn from the political union centred in Brussels is about a criminal justice system and the concepts of liberty and freedom. Because, since Magna Carta and the evolution and development of common law, we have had the fairest and best judicial system in the world. And I'm afraid that what the Human Rights Act has done is it's thrown all of this up in the air, and we finish up with a ridiculous situation where we can't deport an Italian mafia boss back to Italy because under his human rights, the jails there aren't up to an acceptable standard. It's time we got back to the principle of liberty and freedom and forgot about European human rights.
Thank you, Mr. Farage. Nick Clegg.
Clive, do you remember the man Hussein Osman, who wore a backpack with a bomb in it, went to Shepherd's Bush tube station, he wanted to blow up lots of people. Thankfully, the backpack didn't go off, the bomb didn't go off, he fled to Italy. He was brought back here, and he now is in jail for 40 years. Do you remember that teacher, Jeremy Forrest, a couple of years ago, who basically took that young girl to France? Do you remember? And he was brought back within days, and he's now in jail for 5.5 years. I just mentioned those two examples because I thought you might remember them. There are actually hundreds of other examples. They were all brought back to face British justice, and they're now in British prisons because we have European Union rules, which we wouldn't have if we did what Nigel Farage and UKIP wanted, the European arrest warrant, which allows us to take murderers, rapists, paedophiles and other people who want to do us harm and bring them back here to face British justice. If we pulled out of that, which is what Nigel Farage wants, we wouldn't have got Hussein Osman back, he wouldn't be in prison now, and neither would Jeremy Forrest. Right. Actually, by cooperating with other European countries, since criminals cross borders, we must cross borders too to make our streets safe.
Mr. Clegg, thank you. A response to that, 2 words, Abu Qatada. It took 12 years to get him out of the country.
It has nothing to do with the European Union. We did eventually deport him to join. It's the European Convention of Human Rights, which was actually drafted, by the way, after the last war by British lawyers. It's incorporated into British law. It is not the European Union. European Union member states are signatories to it, but it is simply wrong to claim that somehow our streets would be safer if we robbed. And look, again, don't believe my word for it or Nigel Farage's. One of the most senior police officers in this country, Sir Hugh Ord, the head of the Association of Chief Police Officers, said the European arrest warrant is, in his words, an essential weapon in the fight against organised crime. How on earth is it possible for UKIP to claim it is somehow patriotic to make our streets less safe?
Right. Well,
how on earth is it possible that you can claim that somehow you're standing up for Britain if you would not actually extradite and bring back hundreds of people to face British justice?
This really gets to the heart. This really gets to the heart, doesn't it, of the differences between us. And by the way, I don't agree with Nick.
That would be a shock.
Nick, we signed our first extradition treaty in this country in 1174, 850 years ago. We currently have extradition treaties with 92 different countries all over the world. Yes, we have to cooperate on cross-border crime. We do it through extradition treaties, and we do it through organisations like Interpol, which we've been working in since 1923. All right? I, of course, want us to have sensible extradition laws, not just with the EU, but all over the world. The European arrest warrant is totally unnecessary. And can I say that for someone like Andrew Symeou from North London to be dragged off without the production of any prima facie evidence, to be left to rot in a Greek hellhole for over a year without his rights of habeas corpus, I think is an abomination. And how you can call yourself a liberal,
this is fantasy.
how you can call yourself a liberal and to support the destruction of all the great principles of British liberty by signing up to European law, I do not know.
All right,
Again,
Mr.
let's just leave the rhetoric aside for a minute and let's stick to the facts. Since just 2009, so just over the last few years, 149 murderers have been extradited to or from the United Kingdom because of the European arrest warrant. 120 paedophiles who've done untold damage to innocent children have been extradited to and from the United Kingdom because of the European arrest warrant. And the police tell us it is an essential weapon in their job in keeping us safe. I believe the police more than I believe Nigel Farage. Let me give you one more example of how important it is. Do you remember back in 2001 there were those plane spotters, the British and Dutch plane spotters? I chuckle now, but it wasn't funny then. They got caught up in the Greek legal system. They ended up in Greek jail. They had no idea what was being told to them. They had no idea what charges were being brought against them. They had no legal assistance. The European Union has now passed new rules, new laws, which means that if any of you go on holiday elsewhere in the European Union and you find yourself on the wrong side of the law, you'll get help with interpretation, you'll get legal help, you'll get assistance. Right. Guess what UKIP did? They voted against all of those measures. Another example of the European Union keeping us safe and protecting our rights.
And if you get arrested in Spain...
Nigel Farage.
If you get arrested in Spain, Nick... You get arrested in Spain for something you haven't done, you may be left up to 18 months in prison without even facing a charge. We have a system of common law in this country. We've had it for 800 years.
Why did you vote against measures to help British tourists?
It is based on the presumption of innocence before guilt. It is based on habeas corpus and common law. We must defend the principles of liberty, freedom and justice We should all defend the rights of British citizens. Why did you not vote? I have not voted.
Mr. Clegg, I'm moderating this debate. Thank you.
I have not
Would you
voted.
like to respond to a question that was put twice?
I've been in the European Parliament now 15 years. They're getting a bit cheesed off of me over there, I've got to tell you. And I have not voted in 15 years for one single piece of legislation that is added to the power base of the European Commission in Brussels.
Even when it means British tourists who get caught up on the wrong side of the law, went on holiday, who need translation, they need help, they need lawyers, they need assistance. Why is it that UKIP dogma is so strong now, you won't even help British tourists when they're on the wrong side of the law, on holiday elsewhere?
Nick, I'll tell you what the dogma is. The dogma is, I believe the best people to govern Britain are the British people themselves, not the European Commission.
Okay, let's move on. I think it's a situation...